Our next poet is one of the most distinguished poets on the scene, I think in London particularly, and her name is Agnes Meadows. Agnes runs the Loose Muse Women's Writers' Night every second Wednesday, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here at the Poetry Cafe. Two of Agnes's books on sale here tonight. She's very widely published also, and she's a keen and inveterate traveller. She's just returned from Cuba. She's off to Baghdad in April, so this is a tiny window in which we can get her here, pin her down, and ask her to read some poetry. Agnes Meadows.
First of all, you must excuse me. I came off the plane, went home last Friday, came down with the most appalling cough, Zika, and have literally been in bed for 8 days, and got home. Came out today only because of my friend and you guys. So if I cough, I do beg your pardon. Okay. Bear with me. If I wasn't a poet, I would be a ploughman, weaving furrows straight as fingers, the earth groaning with unborn seed promise. My hands, black loamed and calloused, stroking the pledge of harvests in each grain. A flotsam of seagulls would froth in the wake of my footsteps, and earthworms, blind and silent, would shudder underground. If I wasn't a poet, I would be a blacksmith, honing shoes for stallions before they stepped into the untamed morning. I would bend the burgeoning blade, the nascent sword shaft, breathe in the quickening perfume of flame and iron, the alchemy of steam and steel compliant under my hammer, as a woman might be when forged in adoration. If I wasn't a poet, I would embroider tapestries of silk born in lands where women sat still as in caged nightingales, feet tiny as pebbles, each step taken painful as the needle's prick. I would weave plaid in colours of rainstorm and heather, tales of clan leaders and glenside struggle ghosting the warp and weft of each strand, and I would sing as the cloth burst from the clattering loom, every yard a chapter of history. If I wasn't a poet, I would be a gardener, growing sunflowers, heliotrope, purple convolvulus, cabbages the size of townships, wild garlic and sweet peas. I would beguile marjoram, fennel, rosemary and 7 kinds of mint, harvest bumblebees and lavender, tame the scarlet hollyberry to my seasoned will, forest the silk smooth applewood. If I wasn't a poet, I would be a potter, birthing families of jugs, smooth-skinned and gentle as children. I would talk to the moon on glass-eyed nights, engage in secrets with my lady of the fleeting skies, interpret the language of clouds, become a map maker, a flyer of kites and balloons, a beekeeper, a nomad, a gypsy violinist. If I wasn't a poet, I would make lists. Okay, this second one is really quite short, and I go to Greece quite a lot, and I saw this old man dancing the Sirtaki. So this is called Sirtaki Dancer. Midnight, and the moon trembles with love at songs of adoration and shipwreck. An old man, doubled with age, unsteady with strong wine, dances the Sirtaki, arms wide, eyes focused on an unseen horizon, as if memories of sons long lost in forgotten wars had whispered through the bouzouki's mournful echoes. He swoops, arms akimbo, embracing a life that is slipping slowly through his fingers. His hands skim the ground, hands gnarled with net capture, now raising dust, touching transient strangers' footsteps, his face grooved with wind and worry until it submerges into the life-wrung landscape, eroded by the Aegean's fierce summer light, becomes indistinguishable. Thank you. As Patrick mentioned, I'm hoping to go to Baghdad in April to take part in the, I think it's the 5th Babylon International Arts and Literature Festival, which is going to be held in Babylon, Iraq, and also in Baghdad. Excuse me, I've got to blow my nose. Thank you. Excuse me. This is not part of the poem.
In a tissue roadie.
Oh,
got one here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. Anyway, I've been to Babylon twice before, and the one of the times that I went, the organizer or the director of the festival took us to a mass grave of 13,000 disappeared Iraqis, including women and children, that had been missing since 1991 and had been butchered by Saddam Hussein. So I wrote this poem, and it's called On a Morning in May at Al-Mawahil, near the city of Al-Hillah. No gravestones embossed with the names of lost ones. No photographs grown pale with seasonal passage. No flowers to mark a communality of sorrow. No sense of peace or rest or spectral murmurs threading through the familiar ornate architecture of cemeteries. Just numbered wooden markers, row upon row as far as the eye could see. Cornrows of death by the roadside at Al-Mawahil, near the city of Al-Hillah, not far from Babylon, with a traffic muttering in an angry subtext and 10,000 unnamed spirits howling underground, a banshee wail reflecting the cry of mothers rendered unreasonable by grief's weight. Have you ever seen a woman so torn apart by woe that her mouth has become a gaping wound? Her lips drawn thin over her teeth in a parody of laughter, her eyes blinded now with anguish, and the noise escaping from the prison of her broken features is no longer human. Her head thrown back as she becomes breathless and gasping, the animal shriek of agony going on and on. On and on and on, replicating endlessly until it takes the skin off your heart in compassion, and every part of you vibrates with the harshness of it, a raw, relentless kind of pain. And you're praying that it will stop, like she is praying that it will stop, for the comfort of lies, for the yesterday when this kind of grief was not a word in her dictionary of loss, when her child, her brother, father, sister, mother, husband, neighbour, friend was not reduced to an occasional limb, unidentifiable, dismembered, disappeared, but at her side, warm and vibrant in the moon smile of evening. If you have never seen that woman in her mantle of despair, then you will not know what I saw on that morning in May at Al-Mawahil, in the city of Al-Hillah, not far from Babylon, nor will you understand why I stood still and cried. Thank you. Thank you. And the last poem I'm going to read in this set is, I have just literally finished writing this, because it's a Cuba poem. Yeah. And one of the things, and Patrick kind of disagreed with this because he went a few years ago, and there were a lot of beggars in Cuba, and that's not something that you were familiar with, was it?
No, very few.
I mean, just lots and lots, and especially quite a lot of old men. I mean, when I say old men, they might be 23, but they looked about 104. So there was this one particular old beggar with an unlit cigar and really tatty shoes in Trinidad, Cuba. So I wrote this poem, and it's with his voice. These shoes? Lady, I've had these shoes for a decade or more. Cast-offs from a stranger with pale eyes and a frown where his heart should be. They're worn out now, these shoes. Soles grated paper thin, my bony toes visible through the shredded leather, heels bereft of even the memory of rhythm, silent when I stumble across the cobbled square to my favourite spot in the shadow of the church. God is still there, unchanged, and my shoes, they're good for nothing now, but they're all I have. Who would have thought in the first bright days of promise the revolution brought that this would be the end of it? Who would have known that the cold, dark curse of poverty would be hovering over us still, a raven of battles feeding on the flesh of children and ancients alike, that I would still have nothing, my days stretching open-palmed in open-palmed humiliation, that the miles I had walked in pursuit of a different kind of freedom, a royal road leading away from despair, would have brought me full circle back to the beginning, still empty-bellied, without even the comfort of dignity or the heat of manhood to remind me of what we had fought for those glorious decades past. I was a boy when it all began, landless and ignorant, tired of oppression, of the relentlessness of lack, eager to be part of the tempest of change that had been pledged, fired by the lava flow of rhetoric rubricing from Fidel's lips, his volcanic words demanding the dedication of our lives, full throttle, no less than our life's blood, cementing the promise of plenty. Such dreams they were, intoxicating and flame-tree bright, making it easy to believe that change would come because we willed it, that the cocktail of power and possibility would lead us away from nightmare, that somehow when we awoke in the sun trap of morning we would find there was light enough for all of us equally, and that Che and all his compadres would stand at the head of an implacable army, waiting for the winning day to arrive, and the world would shift on its axis at our victory. Such dreams they were, such men, degraded now into little more than slogans on t-shirts and tote bags, their faces transformed into theme park heroes for the rich and overfed who come to gawp at what they've never known. So spare me a peso, lady, for new shoes, for a new cigar to light, to keep my dreams alive for just one more day. Cheerful.
It's okay, we can do series. Well, thanks to Agnes for a very moving first set. She will be back in the second half. So more applause, please, for Agnes.